What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we have a really quick video for a brand new incandescent weapon in Season of the Seraph. And so we're going to be looking at the Judgment of Kel'Garath. This is the first glaive that can roll the incandescent bonus, but also the first in an aggressive glaive intrinsic format. And so let's take a quick look and see if it's worth using. The Judgment of Kel'Garath intrinsic is hard hitting, slow melee, and ranged polearm. And that mainly affects the melee portion of the weapon, of course, where its attack is slightly slower, but slightly harder hitting. I've got to say it doesn't feel super different to other glaives, but the melee damage is noticeably a little bit stronger. It's worth remembering as well when we talk about glaives at the moment that exotics like the Synthoceps, Wormgods, and Winter's Guile now increase glaive melee damage, and I've been trying out Synthoceps right here as well. But as for the glaive using incandescent, it's pretty fun, and as probably expected, incandescent only interacts with the glaive projectile, so we can't spread Scorch on melee kills, which is definitely a shame, although that would be kind of broken. And it only affects the projectile portion of the weapon. And so I'm actually running Path of the Burning Steps right here on the Titan. And as I'm making multiple kills with this thing, it's increasing our damage, which is pretty cool. But in terms of how incandescent feels on a glaive, I'd say it's decent. It's probably most easily compared with something like shotguns with incandescent. And as always with that perk, in any situation where there are lots of enemies grouped up or spawning, it can be really powerful, spreading Scorch and ignitions to groups of targets and taking them down pretty effectively. Obviously, Scorch is tied to weapon damage and impact, so the projectile damage maybe sits in the middle of the pack, where it's easier to get big ignitions with this than something like the Amit auto rifle. But of course, it's giving the crowd control capacity to the glaive in a different way, and we haven't especially seen that with legendary variants. So I think the uniqueness of this combination and the weapon makes it cool to check out. And this particular roll of Judgment has Genesis, which I'd say is one of the decent options. However, the weapon in the first slot can also roll or be crafted with Demolitionist. And this paired with Incandescent is really solid, as all of those Scorch kills can grant melee energy as well. And so I'd say Demolitionist and Incandescent is a premier option for this weapon. Although the first trait slot can otherwise roll Immovable Object, as well as Tilting at Windmills, Overflow, and Pugilist, then it can get Shot Swap, where Final Blows build and store charges which allow you to swap and stow the weapon at a faster rate. And then second slot bonuses outside of Incandescent include Wellspring, Surrounded, Harmony, plus Unstoppable Force, and Close to Melee, where glaive projectile final blows improve glaive melee damage, and projectile or melee damage extends the duration. So that sounds pretty cool potentially, but I haven't been able to try it. It would have been especially nice if this could pair with Incandescent, but unfortunately that isn't possible. We should also mention that this can roll Impulse Amplifier as well. So I'd be curious to get thoughts from you guys if you've used the weapon, or if you have any opinions on the perk selection right here. Again, I'd say the interesting selection for this sits around Demolitionist and Incandescent, but Close to Melee is another unique element for the weapon. As always, on top of exotics, like I said, I've got Path of the Burning Steps right here, but it's definitely worth running solar subclasses with these weapons, and fragments like Ember of Char, where solar ignitions spread Scorch to affected targets, Ember of Eruption, where solar ignitions have increased area of effect, and Ember of Ashes, which applies more Scorch stacks to targets. Those three are pretty important and definitely significantly improve how this weapon will feel. But in terms of the glaive, if you love Incandescent, I think it's totally worth exploring on the weapon. If you also love glaives, then you're bound to have some fun with the right roll of this thing. However, if you're not the biggest fan of glaives, I don't necessarily think it'll do enough to make it feel significantly more interesting than other glaives. And it might even feel a bit meh in comparison to other weapons that can get Incandescent, like Retraced Path, and the Ikelos shotgun, which can now roll with Incandescent as well as of this season. But Judgment of Kel'Garath is definitely filling a unique spot, so I hope this little preview has been insightful. Give us your thoughts on the best rolls and whether this weapon is appealing. But otherwise, thank you as always for tuning in. If you've enjoyed the video, a rating below really does help us out. And feel free as well to get subscribed to the channel for more Destiny content. But otherwise, I hope you guys have an awesome day.